Hey guys, this is another tutorial. This one is going to be how to create a checklist using JSON so we can save and load information locally. This will just be local saving and loading, but the nice thing about using JSON is if you have a server and you want to uh, write and read from the server database, you can use JSON to do that. And so you would still want to create the same JSON objects. The difference would be how you save and load those JSON objects. Okay, so here is, I've kind of already built it, so here is what it's going to look like at the end. Um, so I can add an item to my checklist. I'm going to assume this is like a grocery list, so something like this. And I can add another one, peas, and this category thing doesn't really mean anything at the moment, but in a future version of this tutorial, I would like to order these by category. I'll do that later. But for now, you can see that I have this checklist. These are kind of the checkboxes. If I were to uncheck or stop playing the application, and then let me actually disable this. If I hit play again, you'll see it repopulated the stuff I put in, and then I can check something, stop it, and then replay it, and it remembered what I deleted as well. So that's all using JSON to write and read to a file, and I'll show you really quick what that looks like. If I go into my file explorer and I go to users, so users, this is my username, Cali22VR, and then you need to make sure that you have hidden folders showing. So if you go to View tab and you see this little checkbox here, if you check it, it'll let you see hidden items. And then if you look in app data, local low, you find the name of the company of the project. So if I go back to Unity really quick and I go to build settings, so file, build settings, and then I click on this player settings icon on the bottom left. With player selected in these project settings, you can see here's my company name, here's my product name. So Cali22 product is JSON checklist. So if I go back into that file explorer, company Cali22, product JSON checklist, here's the checklist, let's look at it. Now you can see what these JSON objects look like. Carrot, type vegetable, an index, fruit, banana, index. Okay. So, and if just so you can see, I can also just manually edit this text file, and if I go back into Unity and hit play, it deleted that item. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. If I hit this add button, it's going to re-bring up this menu. So I'm going to now start with a new scene and basically go through recreating this. So let's create a new scene, and let's call this tutorial. Let's start off by creating a canvas, and I'm going to want this canvas to scale with screen size. So canvas scaler, scale with screen size. I'm using this screen resolution. You can use whatever you want. I just like to use this one by default. So 400 by 800. I want it to match width because I plan for this to be mobile, and in general with mobile devices, The bigger change is with width rather than height, or at least the more effective change. Okay, I have my canvas. Let us now create a background. I usually use a panel for that. Call this background. And I'm going to delete or remove this sprite that was currently on it and make it so it's not transparent. There's our background. I'm now going to create a scroll view. So a scroll view, you can just think of it as a window that allows you to scroll up and down. This makes sense, most sense on mobile devices. So that your page is basically, or technically, an infinite size, because you can always scroll down. I don't want the whole page to scroll, I just want part of the page to scroll. And the part that I want to scroll is the checklist, in case we have too many items and we want to be able to scroll through them. So I'm going to want to reposition this. I'm going to switch to scene view so I can get a nice look at this. I can edit this way. I can also just set a specific height, which I think I'll do. That's still too small for me. Let's do 700, 600. That's pretty good. Let's center it again. I think I like that. And then let's make the width bigger. That seems pretty good. And then now I want to make sure that my anchors, right now they're in the center, and I want to make sure they're on the corners. I'm going to use the UGUI tool. If you're not sure what this is, you should look at one of my other tutorials. But anchors to corners. And then now, if I go into game view and I resize this real quick, it should resize nicely. Cool. Okay. On mobile, generally you don't want these scroll bars. And also, I do not want this particular scroll view to work in the horizontal direction. I only want it to be vertical. So I'm going to go to scroll view and uncheck horizontal, which when I hit play will disable, and it'll actually hide this scroll bar. But then the vertical one, I need to leave it checked, but I still don't want to see the scroll bar. So what I can do is I can find the scroll bar, which should be a child of scroll view. I can disable just the image, and then I can find the handle, which is also a child of scroll bar, and disable the image. And you can see it's gone now. This is still going to create spacing for this scroll bar even though it's gone, and I don't want that. So if you go back to the scroll view and you go look at the scroll rect object or component, you can see there's this spacing, -3. So it's giving the scroll bar 3 units of spacing. It's in the negative direction because it starts at the edge of this scroll view and it goes 3 spaces to the left. So I don't want any spacing, so I'm just going to set that to 0. I can leave these the way they are. For a scroll view, if you wanted the scroll bar to show up, what this means is permanent is the scroll view will always show up, or the scroll bar will always show up, even if it can't be scrolled. Auto hide and expand means the scroll bar will only show up if it can be scrolled. Okay. That's pretty much it for the scroll view part. Maybe I want to change this background a little bit. I think I'll make it black. For now, that might be too harsh. And so now when we want to populate our scroll view, what we do is we go into this viewport, this content, and anything that's a child of this content will be populated. Because I want this scroll view to also be, I guess, a vertical list structure, because it's a checklist, I want to make sure that I'm also adding a vertical layout group to the content, and I want to keep that to the left. I don't think I want to force expand the children, so I'm just going to leave all of these blank. From the padding from the top, I'll show you what this is in a second, but I think I'll do 20 and I'll do 20. And spacing between each, I'll do something like 10. Okay. And now the other thing I need to do is make sure this vertical layout group, or this object, the content object, also has a content size fitter. And this content size fitter basically allows the height of this object to grow based on the number of child objects, which we need to happen, otherwise it won't be able to be scrollable. So I'm just going to set this preferred size. You can see now it's setting the height on its own, and this is just the height that it needs for whatever objects are inside. So now I can start adding children. So I'm going to use toggles to add children. So here's a toggle. Let's just add a bunch so you can see what it looks like. And you can see you can't see it anymore because it's off screen, but if I were to hit play, I can scroll down to even those ones that are hidden outside the scroll view. Okay, I don't actually want that many toggles. I'm only going to focus on one for now. But this toggle, I think I want to make it bigger. It looks super small. So maybe 300 and 100. Now you're not noticing much of a difference because even though the toggle is bigger, you can see the boundary is bigger, but the toggle itself isn't getting bigger. So let's change that too. So I want this to be something like that, maybe less. And then this label, I want to line up here. Let's change the color to white so I can see it better. And let's, I think I still want it to be left aligned, but I do want it to be centered in the vertical direction. And then now I'm probably going to go back to this toggle and just resize it so it fits the size that I want. Maybe something like that. I'm going to change the font size of this toggle, 30. That seems good. And just for an example, I'm just going to put caret just so I can see what it looks like. And then I also want to change this checkbox. First of all, I want it to be inactive to begin with because the user hasn't checked it off yet. And then also I want this background to be a different color, so I think it'll help the user know it's a good thing when they check it. So I'll use green. Okay, so that's an okay toggle for now. Since we're going to be creating a bunch of these toggles, we should make it into a prefab. So I can actually just drag in the toggle. I can even rename it. This will be checklist item. And then I could delete this and just put in a bunch of these checklist item prefabs. And then now, the reason why you want to use prefabs is now if I make a change to one, I can easily make a change to all of them. It looks a little too close to the left to me, so I'm going to go back to this vertical layout group in content and add some padding to the left side. That seems fine. I don't think I need any padding on the right. I think this looks pretty good. I might add a little more spacing in between. So just again to go over how these work, this is top, This adds padding from the top, padding from the bottom. Spacing is in between each other. And maybe I actually want something like that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I also want to add just a nice title up here. So I'm going to add a text object. I'm going to move it up to the top here and call this title. Let's make it 300, maybe 80, 60. That seems fine. I'm going to center it. I'm going to make it bold. And it's going to say checklist. I'm going to change the font size. Something like that. And then maybe make it, I don't know, what's a good color? Okay, that's impossible to see. Let's just make it black. So we got our checklist. I think I'll change this background color now to something a little nicer. That's good. Okay. And then finally we need now a way to add items to this checklist. So I'm going to create another, well first let's create a button that I'll put at the bottom. And this button will be called the Add button. Let's see if we want to resize it at all. Let's make the width maybe a little bit bigger, the height a little bit bigger, not that much. That seems fine. I'm going to zero out the position, not in the Y direction, in the X direction. And I think I want to change the color. I want this to feel like something people want to press to, so maybe some other, maybe a darker green. And if I go into the text child object of the add button, I want the text to say add, maybe all caps, bold, 25, maybe, should it be white? I think it should be white as well. And it's centered, and that's what I want. Okay. So there's my add button. I should make sure that the anchors are set up correctly, which they aren't. Let me go back real quick. The title also does not have the anchors set up correctly. Scroll view should be fine. Everything in the scroll view should already have the anchor set up correctly. Even the children of content, because content has a layout group, and objects inside layout group are automatically anchored. So, okay. So then now I want to add another panel, and this panel is going to be my add panel. I want it to cover everything so that the user knows they cannot interact with this checklist while they're currently adding something. And so then I'll add kind of an inner panel, which is where the user actually interacts with. And I'll make it a child of the add panel. And let's just bring it down maybe something like this. So you can still see that, checklist at the top. I actually don't want this panel to have any color. For now, I'm going to give it color so I can see what I'm doing, but when I'm done, I'm going to remove that. And then now I can just add, actually that's also anchored corners. Now I can just add some children to this panel. So let's add a title first. Something like that. Let's make the width a little bigger. let's center it, and let's have it say add item. Bold. This is going to overlay on the background, so what's a good color? Probably just black. And let's make it bigger. That seems fine. Okay, so we've got a title. Let's anchored corners. Let's create. We're going to want to create a field, an input field. And this is where they're going to put in the name of the item. So item, oops, name input field. I think that width is fine, the width and height is fine for now. I'm also going to want a text object to right above it to display what this input field is for. So this one is for the name, and I'm going to center that and make the font a little bigger. Let's make this black as well. And I kind of want these two objects to actually be always together, because I might want to create a bunch of these. Input field text object, input field text object. So I have an input field title, input field title. And since I'm going to do that, you generally want a prefab. In this case, I also want these two objects to be in a prefab together. So I'm going to create another panel, and this panel is kind of just going to be like a holder. So this will be the outer object. So this will be an input item object, and I'm going to want to resize it to around the position of those two inner objects, something like that. Yeah, that seems good. And then now I can add these objects into this input item object, and I can move, if I wanted to, this input item object wherever I want. And I'm just going to make a prefab out of this. So another prefab, and then now I can just duplicate it. I want these to be laid out nicely, so I'll probably also have another layout group. And I think I'll even include the title in this layout group. So these objects need to get added into the add panel, and this is the smaller panel. And then this panel, I should rename this. This is the inner panel, right? This add panel is actually the whole outer thing. This inner panel is just this darker grayed out part. And then I want to add a layout group to this. So let's do a vertical layout group. You can see it kind of position everything really weird. We'll fix that in a second. I do not want to force expand. And now I can just start repositioning these where they should be. Let's see, the width and the height of the title, let's make it 250 or 70. Also, I don't want this to align from the left, I want it to align from the center. I want to have a little padding on the top. That seems good. And then now I'll start doing the same with these. This should have, let's see, what was the width here? 100 by, well, this isn't a width. 200, okay, that's not helpful. Let's just make it 300 by 100 for now. That might be too small. So let's do 400, and let's make the width more, or the height more. 300, seems fine. Same here, And let's see, why are we getting these weird values? Oh, this needs to be applied, or I guess I take the same width and height. There we go. Okay, so now we can see that's obviously way too much for the height and width. So I'm just going to change them. Let's make it the width around 200 looks good, and 100. There we go. That seems about right. And then the nice thing now is I can always add spacing in between them to spread them out a little more. And I could add as many of these as I want. Because it's not a scroll view, it's going to go off this object. I could make it a scroll view if I want, but considering I don't think I'm going to have that many inputs yet, I'm not going to do that. So instead I'm just going to have these two, and then I think I'll rename this second one. So instead of name, it's type, or category, or whatever. So this would be where I would put fruit or vegetable or anything like that. And then I'm going to anchor to corner for these inner parts, and I'm just going to apply this, everything, and it should apply here. I don't want this to say type, so I'll change that real quick. And now I've got my panel.